A Mid-Childhood Night's Dream is the second episode of the 35th season of The Simpsons. This is directed by Mike B. Anderson and Matthew Faughnan, and as always there will be spoilers as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I won't go through every single scene, but I'll talk about the main plot points and share some thoughts and mention any personal highlights. I don't love this episode, but I can see the value. The reason I didn't love it is because, generally speaking, I don't care for dream sequences in any kind of TV show. Occasionally they can be okay, and I do appreciate the creativity in this one, but I didn't really love it as a narrative device. But I think they handled the topic very well. And if I could relate to Marge, it probably would mean more to me. It starts off with Marge going shopping, and she comes home. Bart and Lisa are much younger, absolutely adorable. She's bought them a new bubble toy, and they're playing with the bubble machine. Homer's joining in, and Marge realises it's a perfect moment. And then Bart starts to float away in a bubble, and the bubble bursts, and Marge wakes up in bed, and she looks terrible. She's very unwell after a heavy night, and I do think that was a good decision. Kind of. I actually don't like that appearance. I think they did a good job with making Marge look sick, but I don't like looking at her like that. I just found it a little bit... It made me feel queasy, put it that way. So I guess they did a good job in portraying that. But it does help distinguish between real Marge and dream Marge, which I think was a very good decision, because there are a couple of times when it's maybe not 100% clear if we're in the dream world or not, at least for a couple of seconds. So by giving us the two appearances of Marge, I do think it was a good decision, even if I don't feel comfortable with that style of Marge. We then have what they're referring to as lucid dreams. I have to say it was quite clever. They're lucid dreams, but Marge is remembering it the way she remembered it when Lisa taught her. So she's remembering it as being called lucid dreams, which I thought was pretty cute. And Marge goes through these various different dreams where she realises Bart is growing up, getting bigger, and this is basically what the episode is about. Marge coming to terms with the fact that her firstborn is pretty quickly going to be an adult, and his childhood is disappearing, and she has a lot of anxiety about this, and she, over the course of the episode, has to realise that, first of all, that's not going to happen overnight. Bart still has childhood left, and second of all, well, I guess three things. Second of all, it's inevitable. So just appreciate Bart for who he is, and I'll talk about how that came about in a moment. And third of all, Lisa and Maggie are still, well, they're younger than Bart. So even though Bart might be growing up, it's not like Marge is not going to be a mother anymore, and she's not going to be needed by her children. And even when Bart does grow up, I think it's safe to say he will still need her in certain aspects of his life. So I think there are some really strong messages here. And I think if anybody is going through things that Marge went through in this episode, I think it could be really comforting and reassuring. First of all, that they're not the only person with those feelings. But second of all, that actually there's still some time left for childhood. And I think it did a great job of that. I can't relate to it, so I didn't really get that much out of it. But I could still feel the emotional connection in some ways. So not a bad narrative. I think they did a very good job with it. And I think it could be very beneficial for a lot of people. As I said, though, I don't love the constant dreams. I just don't find them interesting. They are very creative. That's absolutely the case. Just personally, as a narrative device, I'm just not that bothered at all. But we did have some other good moments. I really liked the bit where Bart was explaining to Marge that he doesn't really like going to the bounce-a-thon, and that it's just not what he's into now, giving thumbs up at the end. He prefers comedy photos now, and he explained things really calmly, rationally, respectfully, and I rather liked it. It showed a maturity in Bart, which maybe didn't help Marge with her feelings that he was growing up too much, but I rather liked Bart in that moment. I really liked the scene as well at the bounce-a-thon when the teacher explained to Marge that she hadn't said those things about Bart's childhood disappearing, and it helped Marge to realise that she was so fixated on her anxieties and on her fears that she wasn't able to see that they weren't actually a reality. And I think that that's really important, not just in this kind of scenario, but in any. Like a lot of people, I suffer from a lot of issues with anxiety, and it's so easy to not be able to look past them and realise that those things you're scared of might not actually be the reality that's in front of you. And I think that was a nice way to display that message. And what I loved the most was when Bart at the end gave his comedy photo, and instead of getting upset that he didn't give the thumbs up that he had done in previous years, Marge just allowed herself to appreciate the person Bart had come, appreciate his personality, and enjoy him for who he is and the person he is and the things that he enjoys. And I thought that was really beautiful. So there were definitely some really strong moments in this episode. But that being said, I didn't completely love it. I'd say I loved the last 4 or 5 minutes. The events leading up to it had some good messages, but I didn't personally enjoy them very much. However, A Meet Childhood's Night Dream is definitely not a bad episode, and ultimately, I'd say it was pretty decent.